All right. Hello, everyone. This is my first time doing this, so let's see what happens. I'm going to try to bring in our guests here. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Hey, I can hear you. Okay. Okay. This is one of those things where we're all just going to slowly gather, and I'm going to make sure on my laptop the sound is working. So let's see. Oh, good. Okay. Sound is working. Great. All right, we got that going. Let's see if we get some more people. Who do we have here? Hello? No? All it says is guest number 2. All right, well, we'll see. We'll see if they join. And let me just put here in the comments, feel free to ask us questions, and we'll answer them here. How are you doing, Laura?
Great. What an experience it was to see us on the video. Amazing. I love the sound of the Beethoven.
It really was just, yeah, I was getting more and more emotional just realizing that it was actually going to all work because, yeah, so much has happened.
I don't want to admit how many tears have evaporated in the last hour.
Yeah, it's amazing to just see it come to life. I don't know. It's just like I watched it, of course, a million times this week trying to get, put things together correctly, but nothing really prepared me to see that, 1,500 people, or not even 1,500 people, 1,500 individual streams, which probably we were way over 2,000 then. We're watching.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, it's so awesome.
Really awesome.
Okay, I can hear that we got some other people on.
Someone's in the screen sideways there.
Hello?
Is it Kathy and Alan, maybe? Maybe they can't hear us.
I think, I know Alan said you might be trying to...
Yeah.
Oh. I know Alan and Kathy were sort of away. They were going to try to join on their phone, which sometimes apparently works in this platform, but not always. So, Alan and Kathy, if you can hear us, yeah, unfortunately you guys are breaking up a lot. I don't think we can hear you at all. So, but thanks for trying to join us.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. We got one word. Well, let's see. We'll leave Alan on, and maybe they can get a better connection in the meantime. But to our audience that are joining in here, we've got already over 100 people hanging out with us here. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks for joining us for the concert.
But we can't. We're going in and out.
Yeah.
And oh God. Well, Laura, it might be just you and me. I don't know. I think Joe and Stacy might be hopping on. There they are. Hold on. Here we go. Hold on. We got it. We got it. Uh-oh. All right. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi.
I think we're just getting... For whatever reason, I can hear myself back from your end.
Oh. Yeah, let's
How do you do that?
Here. How's that? Is that better?
Oh, there. Yeah. Perfect.
That is better.
Great. So, so far we have our concertmaster Joe Edelberg, Stacy Polinka from our flute section, and Laura Reynolds, our principal oboist. We should be having, I think Meredith Brown, our principal horn, should be joining us as well. But this is just really, I just wanted to have some time that we could all hang out, and I wouldn't be the one talking the whole time to the chat. And, I guess first off, while we're collecting some questions in chat, I know Laura, you sort of briefly started on it, but maybe you can continue, like I don't know, what your first reactions were to today, what it felt like to have kind of all the work that we did now end up on screen. Like, what are kind of your first reactions? And then maybe Joe and Stacy onto you as well.
It was incredible. It was amazing. I just am so happy that we get to move forward in this way, at least. And the music, I enjoyed listening just as from the audience perspective. And I didn't even play on the first several pieces, so I was fully able to just take in that experience. And what a piece! The Walker is incredible. I love that piece. And Gabrielle Elena Frank's piece, I love that too. So, and brass, antiphonal brass, you know, being the daughter of a brass player, I can never get enough of that. So, yeah, it's amazing. And then to hear the Strauss, and I was watching us play it and remembering every time I've played it in my career, and the first time was in undergrad at University of Michigan, and the many different times of life that this has appeared, and here it is again, and that piece, which I love so much, was the first one that I could make music with other people in the orchestra again, was really wonderful. And now I'm going to start crying again. So someone else talk.
Well, I enjoyed it a lot. You know, we put this together with great effort, and you know, Francesco and the whole staff with great determination, right? Yes. Bravo to them. But it was, you know, it was fun to see the finished product and to see how it all went together. And like Laura, I really enjoyed listening to. I enjoyed listening to the Lena Frank, the Gabriella Lena Frank piece very much. I could certainly hear it better on my sofa than I could hear it sitting on the stage, you know. And that was cool. I liked it. I liked the piece a lot. And it was cool to play the George Walker piece, by the way. George Walker was, when I was young, he was on the faculty at Smith College, and I grew up on the edge of the Smith College campus. This is in Western Massachusetts, pretty close to the music building, and so I remember seeing him around. But I'd never played any music of his before. So I enjoyed that. Nice piece, very nice piece. And the Beethoven was a blast, you know.
Yeah, I thought it all was really, really fun to listen to afterward, and especially, well, actually, no, I think it was a really interesting program, 5 really different pieces, and yeah. It was lovely to feature all the different sections too, and I echo all of everything Laura said about the Strauss. I was in tears when we started playing it in the rehearsal, the first rehearsal. Just, it was so lovely to be back with everybody, and kind of so heroic how it really all came together in the midst of the fires. And weren't you all evacuated from your houses during the time that the last stages of planning were happening?
Yeah, my parents have been evacuated, and we headed down to San Francisco just because, you know, it seemed like 3 years ago. It was just coming in so fast towards Santa Rosa. So thankfully we didn't have to stay with it for long. But I see our principal horn, Meredith, is here. Hi, Meredith.
Hi, Francesco. Hey, Laura. Hey, Joe and Stacy.
Hi, Meredith.
We're just kind of going around like first reactions. I don't know how it felt to kind of take this all in today for you.
Oh, wow. Well, you know, Laura and Stacy and I were all part of another concert that took place yesterday. And one of the other soloists said something like that she was more nervous watching the performance than she had been doing it. And I so related to that today. But, you know, it's really interesting to get the perspective, having done something so recently. When I record a solo or recital or something like that, I usually make myself wait a while before I listen to it so I won't drive myself insane with all the little details. But with this, I was just like, oh, you know, it actually, like, wow, that's a really nice blend. The hall does some nice things for us, and I can, you know, see how Francesco brought out this or that. And overall, like, I managed not to focus on myself and to focus on the whole project, you know, and my little transgressions, or, you know, what I think are transgressions, and just to really feel the whole of that was really emotional, as you other musicians said, because it's just been so long. And I was also remembering sort of what it was like. You know, we always try to play chamber music with each other, even when we're in the orchestra. And I think we all had to, I don't know if you guys agree, but I had to kind of like quiet myself inside a little bit. So, because what I was listening for or trying to feel was just a little farther away. And so I had to really sort of calm some part of myself so that I could pick that up better. So I could still connect to you guys, even though you were a little farther away. And I thought that was a really interesting process.
Yeah, I had that experience too. I remember the first rehearsal, I was just all stretched out of myself. I was just beside myself and not playing well. And, and it was because of that, because I was trying to, reach out too far, or, I don't know, try too hard to make this weird situation work. And I stopped doing that, and it got much better.
Yeah. So we're starting to get some questions in here, and there's a whole bunch of questions that just like was the distance difficulty? We had a question from Dorothy about, how is it to be distant playing with the screens? We had someone asking specifically about the horns and kind of like how does the speed of sound affect like your timing when you're so far away or like, from each other. I think that might have been about the Gabrielli, but I think in general being in the horn section and kind of being that far behind the rest of the orchestra. So I don't know if maybe we want to go around and talk a little bit about the distance or maybe any other particular challenges that maybe people might not have really seen. I think everyone saw the distance, but how was it working with the distance and what were the other challenges maybe that surprised you? Sorry. Maybe shall we go back around the other way? So Meredith?
Oh, okay. Well, I think horns, we're always dealing with that kind of acoustical issue in a way because our bells point backwards. And so we just are a little bit different than everybody else in the orchestra, or at least different from the winds and brass in that way that our sound doesn't go immediately forward. So I kind of felt like it was something that I was used to, but just a little bit more so than usual.
And Joe and Stacy?
Well, I felt like having had these other opportunities with this other concert that Meredith and Laura and I did in another chamber music concert, I kind of knew that it was going to be not business as usual, So I kind of went in with an attitude of just being as relaxed as possible and not trying to think of in the same way that I would normally. I would really listening. Really trying to play and not listen so perfectionistically, I think, in the way that I have in the past.
Yeah, that sounds kind of like what I experienced too. I actually found that I could hear around the stage and with the other string sections, it seemed to me pretty well. And the winds and brass, I couldn't hear my section, and I had to go through a process where. When you play with a section, not just with a section, but we're always trying to blend our sound with whoever else we're playing with. And I just couldn't really focus on that too much. I was not able to really do much of anything about that, sort of my section sound. And that was a little disconcerting, but I thought, well, okay, so that's just the name of the game here. I just have to play the sound that I am aiming for and that and that goes with what else I'm hearing from the rest of the orchestra, and that was a difference. It's something different.
It's like doing orchestra trust falls, right?
Yeah, right. That's right. That's right. Everyone's going to be there. The sounds are going to go together one way or another.
How about you, Laura?
Well, shout out to my oboe partner, Jesse Barrett, because I just love working with him as a team. And even though he was, I think it was 6 or 8 feet or more away, I could feel that. He's just such a wonderful, supportive teammate. I could feel that. And I really appreciated it. The other thing that I wax rhapsodic about all the time is Weil Hall. At the Green Music Center is my favorite place to play. And I sat down in there and played like the first 2 notes, just testing reeds. And it was like a shock about the huge amount of sound that came back to me that I hadn't heard like that in literally 7 months. Like my apartment doesn't have that kind of reverb, and playing outside just doesn't do that, so wow. And so when I realized and enjoyed, frankly, all of that sound coming back, like that tentacle experience where you throw out your feelers to hear everybody, you can find it there. It's reverberating somewhere. And so I really appreciated that. But was it a challenge? Yes, it was a challenge still. And we usually sit much closer together, not just for the blending of the sound, but also for the reading of the body cues out of our peripheral vision. And 8 feet, it's harder to see that than 1 foot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right.
So we have a question from Mark Helfman. I thought it's an interesting one, a little outside the scope of this concert, but he asks, has it been hard to keep up your practicing all this time without a concert to prepare for? And of course, there are concerts, so maybe the question should be without as many concerts to prepare for. Like, what has it been in these months as things are sort of more stretched out in time? Maybe Meredith?
Well, that question sort of assumes that I have kept my playing up all this time. I will admit to, when this all first happened, taking a break. I think I took about 3 weeks or a little more than that off because, frankly, I was tired. We went to running around full speed, in this midst of the busiest part of the season to nothing. So I think I was a little bit paralyzed and a little bit grateful for the rest. But I think practicing is it's a part of our daily routine. Not just the practice routine, but the overall routine. And it's, sort of a part of us. And so after a few weeks, I really felt like I needed to go back to playing my instrument because it feels like a bit of an anchor during these crazy times. Mm-hmm. And there was also an opportunity to actually refine some things that I'd been running around playing concerts too much to be able to focus on. So that's what I'm trying to work on right now, is actually take advantage of it.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Laura?
The summers are a challenge for me in the practice arena generally because I go to a full-time position at the conservatory in music administration, but I've taken this time to really focus and explore some of the solo oboe unaccompanied repertoire that I have never had time to really delve into. So, and revisiting etudes and more deeply delving into the music that I'm giving my students, things that usually I'm practicing the orchestral repertoire for the upcoming concert. And now I'm practicing, a solo piece or, preparing for a deep dive on a piece that my student's doing. So what has been a challenge is the reed making, because I don't need that many. So, and, that was a shock when I hit September and I was like, okay, you can't play these anymore. You need new. So, it's always a growing period right after a break, because you would think I've held that knife for 40 years. You would think I know how to do it. But there's something about the fine touch of it and the way the cane feels on a specific day. And if you're not doing it all the time, you lose that sensitivity for a little bit. So it's coming back, I'm thankful to say. And I'll be continuing that, especially with Beethoven 3 coming up.
Oh, yes. It was funny coming back and realizing, like, it makes sense that we would come back with Beethoven at the same time of all the composers that that require that the music is so transparent and requires such individual athleticism. It kind of, in hindsight, I'm like, damn, could we have found something? was this the right way to get started? I mean, it was great to be able to throw yourself at something, but it was also, I'm realizing I should say, I have put quite the hurdle ahead of us doing these first 3 symphonies. But Joe and Stacey, how has it been keeping things up without as many performances?
I was pretty faithful for the first couple months. I got into a routine of practicing lots of scales and arpeggios, and it felt really good. I do. It's an interesting question, because I actually find that I do rely on what's coming up for me to keep me kind of practicing, and so. But at first, I was pretty faithful, and it was nice to be able to just play, just do mechanics, shall I say? It felt really good. And then things changed. I got distracted. Other things happened. And then it got to be a little bit more hit or miss. But then luckily, we had little things to pull us along. Stacey and I recorded some videos, like for the Santa Rosa Symphony website, for example, and we did a couple of other things, and those were enough to keep me motivated to practice. And so I had a pretty good start out of the block, and then a dip, and then I got back into it again, and it all felt good. It all felt good.
Yeah, I think we're lucky. I'm really grateful that we could be sheltering in place together, two musicians, because we've had the opportunity to play duets and play a lot more music together, which is something we always wanted to spend time doing and never could quite find the time to do when we were running all over the place, playing all these different gigs. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Well, we've had a lot of comments about the Beethoven, doing it with a slightly smaller orchestra. And of course, for us, everything was different about playing Beethoven. So it's not like we can sit there and be like, well, it felt different than the last time, because everything was a little different. But, as since this fall, we'll be doing these three symphonies. I wonder just what in particular do the Beethoven symphonies mean to each of you on your respective instruments? Are there particular symphonies that stick out, the way he writes for your instrument? Just like in general, when you think of like you're going to play a Beethoven symphony, what are the things that kind of stick out to you? And maybe we'll go straight back to Joe and Stacy first, because Joe, you gave such a great introduction to the Beethoven First Symphony.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So.
Well, I know, when I'm going to play Beethoven, I feel like I have to be prepared for lots of dynamic contrasts and sudden ones, and extreme dynamic contrasts, and that's actually kind of a factor. It's a certain kind of athleticism, I guess, that I want to be prepared for, and but I also know that the music will really support, it'll support my efforts, because I find earlier classical music is a little more easily damaged or sort of shattered, and Beethoven, I find, just because his emotional scope is so immediate and broad, that it can tolerate some what shall I say? It can tolerate a range of things that might happen while you're playing. I don't feel. I can feel like a bull in a china shop when I'm playing Haydn or Mozart, and I hardly ever feel them, even though, because he did start off as a classical composer, there's a lot of delicacy in a lot of his music. I just find it can tolerate more.
I think maybe it's because there's kind of a connection to the folk tradition, even more so. I don't know. I find that really strongly in all of his symphonies.
Yeah.
As far as being like a wind player, I feel like his wind writing, spans a really large range from the early symphonies to the later symphonies. The early ones, it really reminds me more of Mozart, and where we're kind of color and not necessarily carrying solo lines as much, except for the like maybe the slow movement. And then as the symphonies get more developed, it becomes more complex and more challenging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Laura, well, both of you, Laura and Meredith, have big roles to play, especially in the Third Symphony. But just, Laura, maybe you want to talk a little bit about, in general, Beethoven on the oboe?
In general, Beethoven and I share the same birthday, so I've always had an affinity for his music. So there's that. And I have prepared many Beethoven excerpts for many auditions over the time. So it feels both very familiar and exceedingly challenging, because no matter how many times you come back, it's still the same things that require extra attention and extra refinement in order to deliver it in the way that you want to do it. That said, he writes perfectly for the oboe. There's nothing wrong with the way that he writes for the oboe. And I think actually it was in my educational interview with you that I mentioned the Beethoven trio for 2 oboes and English horn, which you had not been familiar with yet. And that is a standard. So I feel like he loved the oboe, and I tried to do him justice.
Mm-hmm. And Meredith, I know we got the giant horn trio coming up for Eroica, which I'm super psyched about. But throughout, it seems like he I mean, it's kind of like what Joe says. I feel like the way he sometimes treats the horns is like a bull in the china shop, and it's just kind of like, well, this is going to be awesome. Like, let's go. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, like that moment in Beethoven 5, right? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, that's like, hey, we're here. You're not going to miss it.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, throughout the Beethoven symphonies, like each one requires a different kind of being in shape. Like, I can't just practice to try to be, you know, in shape in general. Like, I have to practice for that Beethoven symphony. Like, Beethoven 2 and Beethoven 7 have roughly the same tessitura, but completely different to play. You know, Beethoven 2 feels like almost a little like high Leopold Mozart kind of a thing for us. And then Beethoven 7 is this, you know, galloping horses kind of a kind of a theme, and loud and high, and you're out there. So, you know, I guess he kind of hangs us out to dry a bit sometimes, but in really fun and interesting ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, you guys have been so generous with your time, and I also want to just, you know, I to all my colleagues, if anyone was watching, I mean, thank you guys for making this possible. I mean, it wasn't just, you know, this time it wasn't just about the artistry and the energy that you all brought, but the optimism that you brought was necessary to get us through that. And I just want to say how much I know, you know, all of us on staff and all of our patrons, we really appreciate that kind of dedication that you brought to making this happen, because that's what made it all possible. So very much appreciate everything you said. Wishing you all the best for the next couple weeks till we do this again.
Yeah, until we meet again. Thank you, Francesco.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And thanks to our wonderful audience for joining us today, for all your questions. I know there are a lot of them directed to me. If you guys want to hear answers, I do every Thursday night. You can come to my YouTube channel. I will take these questions and I will answer them on Thursday, as we have we'll have a post-op about how this went. All right, everybody? So thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.